तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in the 8th verse of the 10th chapter of Jnaneshwari. And here we see the Lord having enumerated all the qualities, and there he had told बुद्धिर्ज्ञानम सम्मोहः क्षमा सत्यम दमः शमः सुखम दुःखम भवो अभावो भयं चाभयमेव च अहिंसा समता तुष्टाः तपोधानं यशो अयशः भवन्ति भावा भूतानां मत्त एव पृथक् विधाः. Having told all these qualities, that intelligence, knowledge, freedom from delusion, forbearance, truthfulness, self-control, serenity, happiness, sorrow, birth and death, and fear, and also fearlessness, non-violence, even-mindedness, contentment, austerity, charity, fame and infame. These different modes of being spring from me alone. The Lord is telling that He is the source of creation. See, remember in the 9th chapter, what did he say? That the whole creation has come out of me. I am pervading the whole creation, yet I am independent of the whole creation. Isn't it? Now that thought, that 2 verses, is now the expansion. Now here he is saying that all these qualities that are seen in the humans, everything is coming because I alone am all these qualities. So, for example, the lipidity in water, the heat in the sun, the hardness in the stone, etc., 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 everything I am. See? And then he says, he doesn't stop there. He is telling you how the creation has come about. How the creation is pervaded by him. Then he says in the 6th verse, where are we? 6th verse. Maharshaya sapta purve chatvari manavastatha madbhava manasa jata yesham loka ima prajaha. Here he says, the 7 great seers of old as also the 4 manus from whom the human race has sprung are of my very essence, born of my mind. So the Lord is taking, He is not taking here the position of the absolute. Absolute is one without a second. Here He is taking the position of Ishvara. And from absolute point of view, there is no creation. From the Ishvara point of view, there is His Ardhangini, the Maya, and then through her He expands Himself. And here He says, how did this whole world? First he says, the 7 great seers, they are nothing but me. All the 4 manus, the first man and the subsequent manus, they are also. And who was this first manu, the first man? He was the mind-born son of Brahma, isn't it? So that Brahma also is not other than him. He alone is expressing as Brahmaji, the creator. He says that first man, Manu, is also my creation. Here he says very clearly in the, where are we, in the 6th verse now? Swambhuva. He says that तैसे हे जाहले मग इही लोक केले तेथ अध्यक्ष रचूनी ठेविले इही जन म्हणवनी अकराही हे राजा मग येर जग यांची या प्रजा एवं विश्व विस्तारू हा माझा ऐसीची जाण that this whole creation is my vistar. Can we say that all the waves are expressions of the ocean? Can we say that? Expansion of ocean is the waves. Similarly, the entire cosmos, the entire creation, and don't think creation means only this world that you are seeing. What is creation? Tell. Tell creation. What is creation? How can you describe? What does it include? What is that everything? Tell me specifically.
Like a dot on the big toe?
That comes, yes, that it's insignificant. But what is that insignificant? What is that dot? What is your experience of creation? I said it many times. Gita has told it many times.
What we see, what we feel, what we experience.
Yes, but what is, do you see, hear, touch, feel, taste?
Other than me. Everything other than me. But me means
What are the various planes of experiences where you experience the world?
Waking, dreaming.
Dream, wake up,
Hmm?
dreaming.
Yes, your world is not only the waking world. Your world is equal to waking world plus dream world plus deep sleep world. That makes your one experience of the world. Stop getting addicted to this waking world alone. See? So here the Lord is saying, when he just says the word world, which means it already includes these three. He says all of them are my manifestations. Here he says, these are 11 projections emanating from my mind. Who are these 11? The 7 rishis and the 4 manus. They are projections. The wave is a projection of the ocean. See? The husband in you is the projection of your mind that I am a husband. There is no entity called husband. You are man only. Isn't it? And then you drop that and then say, you project, I am the father. So, depending upon what comes there in front of you, based upon that, you project a personality. But that projection is coming and going, so it cannot be the real you. You know that projections, the father comes and goes, the brother comes and goes, the son comes and goes, the husband comes and goes, so it cannot be real one. To find out what is the real one, who is the real one. So the Lord is saying here, this entire creation is the projection of my mind. And so also is your experience. You know, yesterday you went through the waking experience, you went through the dream experience, and you went through the deep sleep experience. How do you know? Waker cannot come to know the other two. The dreamer cannot come to know the other two, and in the deep sleep, no other experience is possible because mind is empty. Then who came to know? That is the question. Then who came to know? These are the points to ponder. You keep this thought steady and contemplate it. Who? It cannot be someone other than me. I am saying that I had the experience of waking, dream and deep sleep yesterday. I know I had these three. Yet, so I am expressing as these three, yet I am other than these three. Only then I can come to know, isn't it? They become the known and I am the knower. Then who is this real me? Stay with it. Everything will stop. Meaning the Lord will reveal himself at that moment. In that pristine moment where you are not coming to a conclusion. where you know that all these expressions were there, but you are not caught up in them. Your attention is on the knower of this experience. Stay there, because and that knower is not other than you. You cannot see, just like eyes cannot see the eye, yet you know there is an eye. Isn't it? Similarly, this I, the individual or the conscious being, he knows everything. He knows he is the one who is knowing everything, but he cannot look at himself. Yet the attempt must be made. Just be aware of it. You don't have to twist your eyes or go within and nothing. While looking at it, I don't have to close my eyes to say that, oh, I think I have eyes. No, I don't have to. Eyes can be open. Eyes can be blinking. Yet I know there is eye, isn't it? The mind can be thinking. I know there is mind. Similarly, I know I can be aware of the one who knows all this. And that fellow, if I can use the word, that person who knows everything, all the three words, is not other than the Lord. His experience is exactly what the Lord is saying. Your experience is exactly like the Lord is saying. So he says that all these 11 are my projections, and then came these 11 projections of mine who formed the worlds and created guardians to protect them. In this way, these 11 beings are the rulers of the world, with all the people therein as their subjects. These are the 7 plus 4, 11. 11 main thoughts, which then propagate all other thoughts. Know that this expanse of the universe has come out of my very being. And in this way, he says, in the conclusion of that 6th verse, he says, I alone was in the beginning. Who is saying? Absolute self? No. Ishvara is saying. He says in other religion also, that, what is that? First came the word, but before the word, who was there? The Lord was there. So here also, I was alone in the beginning, and from me the mind was born, and from the mind came these 7 sages and the 4 Manus, and from these 7 sages and the 4 Manus came the guardians of the world, and after that, after the guardian deities, who are these guardian deities? The Indra, the sun, the moon, the etc., various gods are there who have got specific roles in this world. And then once they were presiding over the world, then came about the 3 worlds. What are the 3 worlds? Again, waking, dream and deep sleep. Then came the 3 worlds, waking, dream and deep sleep. I am not saying it, the Lord is saying it. And what is our purpose of life? What is our journey? To sink our mind, to think and see the world the way the Lord is seeing the world, isn't it? That will be God realization. So rather than find faults, or no, it is not possible, no, it is very difficult, no, it is always finding excuses why it cannot be possible. Instead, take a chill pill, look at it how the Lord is looking at it. We may not comprehend it straight away, it is not possible. When we go to school, we don't comprehend what teacher is teaching us, but over a period of time, it clicks. That parents are forcing you, 2 by 2, 2 ones are 2, 2 twos are 4, 2 threes are 6. First, what is the purpose? What is the meaning? But eventually you learn. Same ways, the same technology is here also. Why do we find it difficult? Because we have given the world too much importance. We are not giving the Lord the importance that it deserves. Yet we want to be free. Yet we want to be happy. Yet we want to be fulfilled. Yet we want to be content. And that contentment, that fulfillment is not possible as long as we are running after the world. Why? Why it is not possible? Why it is not possible? This should be on your fingertips now. Because the world is continuously changing. You cannot catch it. By the time you have caught it, it has already changed. By the time you make a comment about it, that thing has, the situation is already changed. So how can you catch a fleeting thing? Can you draw a line with a stick and write Om or Ram on flowing waters of the river? That is our attempt. We want to hold on to this world and keep it the same till we die. It is not going to be possible. And this is our expectation. We may not voice it, but I am voicing it for everyone. But this is our expectation. That everything should go well, my children should grow up fine. It was so nice when this kid was my child was so small, but it was so romantic when we were young. It cannot be the same. You are holding on to something which cannot be caught. Cannot be caught. World cannot be caught. Because it's ephemeral, it's continuously changing. That is the nature. So stop that attempt. And this we will keep repeating in the satsang, but it has to click inside your heart. The day it clicks, you will find that you are free. In spite of doing everything, you are free. So here, the Lord says, so this entire universe has expanded from my being, and so only those who realize that all these projections have their origin from me are blessed with true insight. So who are the wise people? Who are the devotees? Who realize that the entire world, in brackets, waking, dream, deep sleep, past, present, future, whatever can be put into that word has emanated from the Lord, has emanated from the divine. The source is the divine. The source itself has become the entire world. So can you realize this by thinking about the world? Not possible. But if your attention is in and through every experience that whatever the experience, whatever you're seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, thinking, tasting, even the memories, if they come up, if you can remember, and these are also because of the divine. The divine alone is expressing as these memories. The divine alone is expressing as these decisions. The divine alone is expressing as the waking, the world. The divine alone is expressing, manifesting as the dream world. The divine alone is expressing as the no world in the deep sleep. So when you are repeated enough times in your mind, because mind does not know what is real and imaginary, when you repeat it enough times, your focus is going where? On the divine theme. When your mind gets focused on the divine, the Lord, then some transformation is possible of the mind. And then what happens as this starts happening? You start seeing the divine everywhere, like the gopis. They didn't do any sadhana. All they did was just love the Lord. They didn't do any sadhana. From morning till evening, they only thought about Him, they remembered Him, they sang His glories, they sang His stories, and eagerly waited when He would come out of His house, in Nanda Baba's house in the morning, and when He will come back from the forest with the cows and calves. They would wait eagerly. The eyes were thirsty for the vision of the Lord. Are our eyes thirsty? Are our ears keen to hear only the Lord's name? If that has not happened, then we are shortchanging ourselves. We are shortchanging our purpose of being born as human. Then in the 7th verse, एतां विभूतिं योगं च मम यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः सो विकम्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः. This was the 7th verse. He who knows truly this creative power and manifestation of mind becomes united with unshakable yoga, avikampa yoga. Of this there is no doubt. The Lord is giving you a secret here. And what is that? He says, the one, what is this unshakable yoga? So, this unshakable yoga is that when a seeker or a devotee realizes that the Lord and His manifestation, the creation, are not separate, they are one and the same. Right now, for us, the Lord is in the photograph, the Lord is in the serials, the Lord is a particular form, it's an divine form we have given Him. But we are not able to see that that Lord who is abiding in our heart as our soul or as our consciousness, that alone is expressing as the entire creation. This vision we don't have yet. That vision you have with regards to your child. The child has come out of me, he is my extension, so you will sacrifice, you will love, you will do whatever for that child, isn't it? Why? It is my extension. Imagine, the entire world is your extension. This is how a Mahatma lives. And therefore, he is there serving the creation without expecting anything in return, just like a mother. No expectation in return. Only sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Seva, 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 seva. Which way seva? Whichever way it expresses out of him. He doesn't decide that. Sometimes it is in silence, sometimes it is by word, sometimes one Mahatma was there, Swami Nityananda in Vrindavan, and I spent few days with him, and only 1 hour he will meet all the people. And if he gives you some prasad, you have to leave the room immediately. And there, at the entrance, it is written, if you understand silence, you will understand God. He'll hardly speak to you. First 3 days I went, I did not hear not one word. But I couldn't. I just in love with him. And then I didn't ask. I started pressing his leg. I was sitting next to him, and he put his hand over my head. Then I felt a bit of beautiful, loving touch. Gave me confidence. I said, Swamiji, I want to ask some questions. He gave everyone prasad and told me to wait back. And then we had discussion for 2-3 hours. And one day, and that time he told, I said, Swamiji, I am going. He says, come back for Basant Radha Ashtami, something like that. I said, Swamiji, I am going away. You may be going away, but try to come. And what, believe, you won't believe. I found myself, at night I caught the bus evening, and I reached the house where he was staying in Vrindavan. I reached there at 11 o'clock at night. And he had instructed all the disciples there that Brahmachari is coming, he will be coming late, make sure there's some food for him and keep the bed ready. I have not called him, I have not told him that I am coming. See? From after that day I have not seen him. He's been sick. I don't know when Lord will give us the chance. So he who realizes that the source, the essence, if we can understand, the essence is water and the manifestation is the ocean and the waves. Is the essence itself the manifestation? Yes. Gold is the essence, manifestation is the ornament. Is the essence and the manifestation one and the same? We can understand. Mud is the essence, pot is the manifestation. Is the mud and pot one and the same? God is the essence and the world is the manifestation. Just like mud is nothing, mud itself, mud's manifestation is the pot. But can you say mud is only that much as the pot is? Or mud is much more than all the pots put together, isn't it? Gold is, manifestation of the gold is ornaments, but even though gold is expressing as ornaments, yet it is much more than the ornaments put together, isn't it? Exactly the same way. Water, its manifestation is ocean and the waves. But the water is much more than the ocean and the waves. In its depth, in its power, in its capacity. Exactly the same way, the Lord and His manifestation. What is His manifestation? The three worlds. So the Lord Himself is expressed, manifesting as the three worlds. He is the cause. It is His Vibhuti. It is His Vibhuti. Yet the Lord is much more than the three worlds put together. And what He said, He is only a tiny dot on the right toe of Lord Vishnu. Isn't it? So that manifestation, that Vibhuti, how much space does it occupy? In the immensity of the Divine Lord, one dot on the right toenail. Means it's insignificant. How much area do the waves occupy in the total waters? How much area do they occupy? Insignificant. It's only the top 4 or 5 feet, that's all. Waters can be so deep. But where is our attention? Not on the depths of the water, not on the immensity of the water, but on the surface. Only on the surface, isn't it? So where is our attention here? On the names and forms. What is the world put together? Asti Bhati Priya Nama Rupa. The world is Bhati. It is known. Priya. It is dear to us. And what is dear to us? Name and form. If Asti Bhati Priya, if we be the self, if we love the self or love the Lord, our mind will get detached from the name and form and will come to know the essence. But right now, our attention is only on the name and form, and that name and form is a mere appearance on the what do you call it? On the total, on the divine. See, in Panchadashi, the thought comes that how the world is. And for that, 3 different views are given. One is Arambhavad, then second is Parinamavad, and the third is Vivarta. So Arambhavad, Parinamavad is what? Just like the milk becoming the yogurt. Material is milk, but it has transformed and become yogurt. Now what was the source? You cannot go back to the source. Can you go back to the milk? Not possible. The milk has changed its form to become the yogurt. Has the Lord changed His form to become the creation? This we don't accept. Second style, second argument. It is like you begin with something but you end with something. Arambhavad. What you begin with, conclusion is not the same. You begin with a thread but you end up with a cloth. So we began with the Lord and we ended up with creation. Is it like that? Has the thread gone crisscrossed and made itself into the cloth? So has the Lord crisscrossed himself, his own being, to become the creation? We don't accept that also. Because in the Lord, in the divine, no change is possible. Divine is always ever the same. Then what is the third option? Vivarta. Vivarta is a mere appearance. The entire world is merely an appearance on the divine. Just like ornaments are mere appearances on the gold. Waves are mere appearances on water. You touch, taste, feel water, but you are calling it a wave. So it's, for all purposes it is water. Then why you are calling it by a different name? Because your attention is on form. Correct. This is the appearance. Name and form is the appearance. And this is accepted in our Vedanta. And by Jnaneshwar Maharaj also. He is a Pakka Vedanti. Whoever realizes through yoga that I am not different from my manifestations and the living beings born of these manifestations become one with me, heart and soul. O Arjuna, whoever worships me with this vision of unity, I become his servant by reason of his worship. Whoever sees the unity within the diversity. So what we have just now said, wean your attention away from the name and form and think about the essence. In every experience, with every contact, with every whatever you see, hear, touch, feel, taste, don't get carried away by what you see. Come back to the principle. Don't get carried away by what you hear. Come back to the principle because of which hearing is possible, because of which seeing is possible, because of which tasting is possible. We are eating food, very tasty, very tasty. Your attention is on the taste. Your attention is not on the principle of life because of which the tongue is able to taste. Your attention is not on the principle because of which the ears are able to hear. The skin is able to feel. The mind is able to think. Our attention is on thinking, not on that principle because of which thinking is possible. Feeling is in the mind, thinking is in the intellect. You know that these thinking and feeling and seeing, hearing, touching, feeling are coming and going all the time, isn't it? But we are caught up, we are enslaved by them. Here the Lord is saying, the one who functions through all this, you don't have to stop anything in life. Continue doing whatever you are doing. But keep your attention on the principle, the divinity which is behind all this. See? The one who sees this divine hand, the divine himself behind all experiences, the Lord says, I become his slave. Because there are very rare, few who are able to come to that point. Are you one of those? You have to find out. Oh, because it is rare, what's the point of me attempting it? That's wrong conclusion. If it is so rare, only few people are there, so it must be very difficult. Wrong conclusion. So here Krishna Bhagavan is telling, therefore, O Arjuna, I have taught you this yoga of devotion consisting of knowledge of unity which continues without interruption. Whether you accept it or you don't accept it, this unity that the divine itself has manifested as the whole creation, it is continuing whether you accept it or not. Water alone is expressing as the waves. Whether you accept it or not, it is happening. So who is wise? Who accepts it? Who doesn't argue with it? By argument nothing is going to be gained. Then what other option we have? Accept it with faith. And try to match your experience of life with the words of the Lord Himself. Then syncing is taking place, isn't it? Then your mind is synchronizing with the Lord. See, in our Upanishad there is one thought, example given. The larva, on the walls you have seen, and what is that? Pupae inside. And when it is ready, the wasp goes and makes a hole on one side and goes inside. And the moment that pupae comes out, the baby butterfly comes out of its shell, the first thing that it looks is what? The big eyes of its mother. She's covering the hole. There's no light from anywhere. All it is seeing is the eyes of the mother. And looking into the eyes of the mother, she gets the form of the mother. Think. Keep this thing in idea. Thinking, looking at its mother, it gets the form of the mother. Thinking about the Lord, you will get the form of the Lord. Or you will become one with the Lord. You will have the vision of how the Lord looks at the world, isn't it? You have known the story of Eklavya. He did not get discipleship under Guru Dronacharya. All he did was make a statue and looking at the statue. But what was his disposition? It was of utter faith, unflinching faith, that I don't need a physical living guru in front of me. His statue is equally powerful. And by looking at the statue and thinking that statue is none other than that living Dronacharya, he became a greater archer than Arjuna, isn't it? Imagine now, if these two examples are clear, if we put our attention on the divine, attention can only be through the mind. You start thinking about the divine, you start contemplating on the unifying principle. The unifying principle behind all the waves is water, behind all the pots is mud, behind all the ornaments is gold, behind the entire waking, dream and deep sleep experience is the Lord or the Self. Come to that conclusion and stay there. Don't come to, I shouldn't say come to that, intellectual conclusion is there, but experiential conclusion is not there. See? So just like that, baby butterfly looking at his mother, similarly you are looking at the Lord. Who is the Lord? Who knows that this whole creation is my manifestation. He is the master of his creation. He is abiding in his own essential nature, the Lord. So if you keep contemplating on the Lord, all the qualities of the Lord will come to start percolating through you, start expressing through you, isn't it? Of such a devotee, the Lord says, I become his slave. I become his slave. Because such people are rare. What we saw before as Yoga Kshema Vahamyam. He takes care of everything. That was at a very KG level, beginning stages, because we are into our survival. I have to fulfill these desires, I have to get my children married, I have to get them educated, I have to do this. If I do sadhana, what will happen? He says, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam, I will take care of everything for you. All I need is your 100% committed attention. Here, the Lord is not saying that I will take care of you. He says, you put your attention on me, the one who comes to know me in this manner. He is not even saying that I will take care of your desires and your need. He says, I will become your slave. There was still giving, handing out. Here he says, I become your das. At your beck and call. See? How much more can Lord offer himself? Yet we are not ready. Yet we are addicted to the world. Yet we want to control the world. Yet we want to do something in order to achieve something. Even if one meets his death while practicing this devotion, it is all to the good. Even if we die continuing to practice this, attempting with faith, with love. See, has anyone seen God till now? Have you seen God? Have you seen God? I'm not talking about the picture God. That every one of us has seen. Has God come and revealed himself to you? So how do you know there is God? From childhood till now you are going after Krishna, Rama, Govinda. How do you know? You have been Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Have you been blindly knocking on the doors of the divine? How do you know God is there if you have never experienced Him? Experience, oh, God is there because because of Him I am able to see. But that is cause and effect. That is not what we are talking about. Have you seen God? Because I am seeing smoke somewhere far away, I say, oh, there must be fire. Right? That is our conclusion. If I see a child coming home with blood oozing from his knees or something, oh, did you have a fight? Did you fall down? But you did not see him fall down. You did not see what the cause was of that injury. All you are seeing is the result, the effect. You are seeing the effect called smoke and you are inferring that there must be fire there, isn't it? You are seeing the world and you infer that there must be some source, that is the God, isn't it? This is how we interact with this information most of the time. But have we experienced that source? That is my question. Till we have not experienced that source, till then we must have faith in that source, isn't it? And faith is not a product of understanding. It is not a product of questioning. It is not a product of inquiry. Faith is necessarily blind. I believe that there is a source and that source is God, whoever He may be. But I believe that there is some source. Isn't it? So faith must be blind initially, till we feel the proximity with that divine. First stage is yoga abhyas, pranayam, etc., etc. Second stage is devotion. With the yoga, pranayam, etc., you control your senses, you control your mind, shama, dhamma, uparama, etc. Dharana, dhyan, and then comes devotion. When dharana, dhyan comes, then comes devotion. With love. Forget about understanding. All that is required is an eagerness, a thirst to merge into Him. And what is that Him? In the yoga abhyas, it comes as Drishyanu with Samadhi, Shabdanu with Samadhi, and then Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The grossest way to contemplate on the Lord is take the form of the Lord. That is called Drishyanuvit. So you keep looking at a particular form, keep looking of the statue of Krishna or Rama, and when you close your eyes, you still see the image in your mind. And that the love for that image is so intense that you go into meditation. Then the second stage is, but that is still, it is not permanent. The next stage is, you are seeing the form and you are chanting the name, mentally or gross. Then the second stage is, no, I don't want to be disturbed by the form. Automatically it happens. And you want to keep chanting the name of the Lord. Keep chanting. Vaikari Madhyama Pashyanti Para. By the name, you want to merge into the divine. You want to call him out with such intensity till you come to realize that only in silence will he reveal himself. See the contradiction there. Till you are screaming away for him, he is far away. The moment you become silent with that eagerness, alive, he reveals. See? And when he reveals, Nirvikalpa Samadhi begins. The revelation is not you are separate. It doesn't. The revelation is not that you are still there and something is revealed to you. No. The revelation is that what I was seeking, I alone am. That is the revelation. And it dumbfounds you. You are unable to speak after that because the intensity of that unity, what you are seeking, is none other than you. You have not learned to comprehend it yet. You have not been able to articulate it. It's only experiential. And you go into Samadhi. It's beyond understanding. And the more you go into the Samadhi, a point comes, how can I make this Samadhi into a 24/7 experience? I don't want to sit in Samadhi for 1 hour, half an hour, half a day. How can I make it 24/7? Then comes the Buddhi Yoga. Then comes the Jnana Yoga. So from devotion, then the next stage, once the merging takes place, Samadhi takes place, union with the Lord takes place, the Lord Himself initiates you into the knowledge. See? Beautiful way Mahatma has said, the reality is Sat Chit Anand, isn't it? Disturbance in Anand is equal to Ishvara. Disturbance in Chit, in the consciousness, is Jiva. And disturbance in Sat, Sat means existence, is the Prakriti. And where does this disturbance come about? By the will of the divine alone. Think, when you wake up in the morning, are you aware of the world? Are you aware of anything? The first moment that you wake up, what do you experience? The first thing, that you are not even alive. You just become aware of your presence, isn't it? You are not aware of your body, you are not aware of your position, you are not aware of your bed, you are not aware of your senses. All you become aware is of your presence, that you are. It may last for a second or 2 seconds. Then the mind clicks in. In that mind, still not, the whole world has not come. Then that mind says, oh, I'm in this position, in this body. What time is it? Then you become aware of your position, this side or that side. And slowly, slowly, slowly the world enters into your mind, or the mind starts projecting the world. It's not the world is entering from outside, it is the mind which is projecting the world outside. Just like the Lord is saying, the entire manifestation is my projection. The waking, dream, and deep sleep are the projection of the self. See? So, with this, we come to the 8th verse. If you wish to know this devotional yoga of God's unity, listen to these words of divine. Now, in this 8th verse, what is this Avikampa yoga? I mentioned a little bit about it. Unshakable yoga. What is this unshakable yoga? Is being mentioned in the 8th verse. It says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarva pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Knowing that I am the source of all and that everything proceeds from me, the wise worship me full of rapturous devotion. This is the one who is steady in this. Avikampa means shaking, vibration. Avikampa means non-vibrating yoga, non-vibrational yoga. Vibration can be at many different levels. We are not talking about the body level, we are not talking about the sensory level, we are talking about the mind. What is the vibration in the mind? Thoughts. And where do thoughts take you? To different themes all the time, isn't it? What will become a steady yoga then?
No thought.
That the mind is continuously contemplating on one theme to the exclusion of everything else, isn't it? What I just said, when the mind is contemplating on one theme to the exclusion of everything else, this is equal to Shraddha, faith. Faith means believing in something with the belief that one day you will come to know that. Faith, as I told you before, when you have faith, there can be a sprinkling of doubt, right? Is it or is it not? Is it or is it not? Am I going the wrong way? Am I with the right teaching? Am I with the right teacher? Is this the way that I want to follow? But when you become a devotee of the Lord, without any doubt in your mind, what will be doubt-free existence? When your mind becomes doubt-free, what will be the conclusion? That you are absolutely convinced that the Lord is, isn't it? See, if you can believe that you are the child of your parents, have you got any experience of being a child of your parents? Other than that piece of paper? Other than the parents telling, I am the Baba, I am the Mama, your name is so and so, that therefore you are our child. That all are these are just data. But do you have an experience? Every child is born dead till woken up. Till woken up. जब तक थप्पड़ नहीं पड़ता तब तक जागता नहीं. See? So what? Only because you have faith, you accept your parents as your parents, isn't it? Is there any logic behind it? No logic. And you will not accept any logic. See? Similarly, when we have the Lord is saying, the one who knows me as the unifying principle, the one who knows me as the one who manifests as the entire creation, and he has got no doubt about it whatsoever. Such a person, he sings my glory with great devotion, because nothing else. What will you, once you know that Lord is, and the Lord is the whole creation, then is there anything else that you need to achieve? Then your disposition is like that of the gopis. Wherever you see, it's the Lord and Lord alone. Because the Lord is in your heart, therefore the Lord is seen everywhere. Just like when you wear blue glasses, you will see the blue world. You wear dark glasses, you will see a dark world. You see, your inner being is pervaded by the divine theme, then through the senses, through the mind, through the intellect, everything will be seen as the divine alone, isn't it? Because there is no other option available. No other option available. Here Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, Tarimichi eka sarva ya jaga janma pandava ani maja chipasuni aghava निर्वाहो यांचा कल्लोळमाळा अनेगा जन्म जळीची पैगा आणि तया जळची आश्रयो तरंगा जीवनही जळ ऐसे आघवाची ठाई तया जळची देवी पाही तैसा मी वांचुनी नाही विश्वी ये ऐसिया व्यापका माते मानुनी जे भजती महलते थे परिसाचोकारे udite prema bhave. He says, O Arjuna, I am the source from which this universe takes its birth and sustenance. Just as waves arise in water, take shelter in water, and have their being in water, and are nothing but water, so there is nothing in this world without me. I have explained all this before. There is nothing else in this world. The entire world. Don't think that space, air, fire, water, earth, these are materials. They are also nothing but an expression of the Lord, the divinity alone. The knowers of the self who realize this all-pervasive nature of mine and worship me with pure devotion and love, and know that I am not separate from place, time and circumstance, recollect me in their mind and happily sport in the three worlds. Just as the wind taking the form of Akasha moves in the Akasha, they also regard that every being that they see is of divine nature. Know that this is my true yoga or devotion. He says, Desha kala vartamana agave mazasi karoni abhinna jaisa vayu ho na gagana gaganici vichare aise nije nijagyani khelata sukhe tribhuvani jagadrupa mani sandhuni mate जे जे भेटे भूत ते ते मानी जे भगवंत हा भक्ति योगु निश्चित जाण माझा मच्चित्ता okay जाण माझा. So what happens here? How did your vision change when you were a bachelor and you became a husband or you became a wife? What shift took place that suddenly you started looking at the world a little bit differently? You started looking at that girl with whom you had no relationship with, but you got married, and suddenly your interaction with that girl is absolutely different compared to before, isn't it? What has transpired there? See? And it doesn't stop there. Then when the child comes, again a transformation goes through you. You start looking at the world in a different way. The in-laws, the brother of the wife or the brother of the husband, whom we did not know, suddenly we are taking as a part of our family, isn't it? We care for them, we sacrifice for them, we do something for them, we celebrate their birthdays, etc., etc., etc. Think what has happened? Nature forces us. You are born alone, you are individual, I. By nature, the I looks for a partner, and that I, which was only including itself, starts including the wife or the husband in the definition of I. This is my wife, this is my husband. Then it doesn't stop there. Then these in-laws are mine, these brother and sister are of the wife or husband, they are also my family. It doesn't stop there. Then the children, this child is mine. So what is happening by nature? The I is getting swelled. Before it was very lean and mean. Now in that I, the wife is also there, the in-laws are there, the extended family is there, then the child is also there. Then 1, 2, 3, whatever the number of children, all are included, isn't it? The I is becoming inclusive. And whatever it includes in the definition of I, it will love, it will sacrifice, it will share. Isn't it? It will feel responsible, it will do its duty or seva towards those persons. It's automatic. Whatever you have included in the definition of I. Who are these devotees and Mahatmas?
The I is very deep.
They have included in the I the entire creation. The entire creation. You don't have to go from every person in this creation. All you have to accept is the waking world, the dream world, and the deep sleep world are a manifestation of this I, of this divine. Then in the waking world, all the people, all the beings, all the animals, all the insects, every living sentient and insentient, everything is included in the definition of I. Then all the beings in the dream world are included in the definition of I. And their absence, the deep sleep world, is also included in the definition of I. Then when everything is I, will I run after anything? Do I run after myself? Everything is the divine alone. This is avikampa yoga, steady wisdom, steady contemplation, that the entire, here we are talking from devotional point of view, so the entire creation is the manifestation of the divine. Nothing other than, once this vision comes that the divine alone is manifesting as the entire world, then will we fight with the world? Will we argue with the world? Will we desire anything from the world? Will we run away from anything in the world? Will we be afraid of anything in the world? The world is birth and death. Then will we be elated when someone is born? Will we be afraid when death is nearing? Nothing. Think. Then what will be your disposition? What will be the disposition of such a person? Unconditional love towards one and all. Live and let live. That will be your disposition of such a devotee. Only seva, 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 seva. Such a person's presence itself is blessing for the humanity. See? So only through faith we can bring about correct understanding by correct experience. Only by faith. And the choice is yours, what you have faith in. If you have faith, karma is the ultimate, then go. It can take you to only a certain level. You say yoga is the only way, it will take you only to its capacity. You come to devotion, it can take you to whatever its maximum to deliver is. Isn't it? If I have faith that I can do this, and you have absolute no doubt about it, and you will do it. If you remain with that thought and don't get deviated by any other thought, it will manifest. You will be able to do it. This is how people say that I think I'm in love with that person. Then they believe, they start thinking about that partner again and again and again and again. Then they fall in love, and it manifests in their life. If the faith is unshaken, it will manifest. If that same faith is towards the Lord will manifest in your life. And the manifestation of the Lord in your life is this unifying vision. Then such a person, moving in and through where the life is placed him, he does not feel divorced from the divine. He does not search for the divine. Then what does he do? Because he's seeing the unity everywhere. It's not saying, now you two are separate, now you touch your hands together so you become unified. That is not the unity we are talking about. It's very, very subtle. It can only come through, from within it can reveal itself. Then what will such a person do? If he has got nothing to desire now, he has got nothing to achieve, he is fearless of death, he has got and still doing whatever is required to be done where life has placed him, then what will he do? Because the doer has gone. Only then God realization happens. Then such a person only sings the glory of the Lord. That's all. Here it is told, what? Iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. And how do they sing? They sing my glory, they take my name, not mere mechanically, with intense love, with intense bhav. Remember, Swamiji has also said, it's not how many times you take the name of the Lord, but it is with what intensity of emotion that you take even one name. Better than you doing 108 names, the tape recorder does it. Then what is the difference between us and the tape recorder? We can feel. Are you feeling the presence of the divine within your heart? Within your mind? See, and this is what? Knowing that I am the source of all and that everything proceeds from me, the wise worship me full of rapturous devotion. Then they got nothing to achieve. Then while the body is there, they continue to sing the glory of the Lord. That singing the glory of the Lord does not mean continuously blah blah blah. Mere to sakta chitta ananda bhagavan hai. It can be silence also. Silence without going to sleep is singing the bhajan of the Lord. See? So in this manner, in the next 9th verse, how do they do my bhajan? The Lord says. How do these yogis who are in practicing unshakable yoga because of their faith, he said, they sing my glory, they sing my bhajans with deep emotion. How do they do my bhajan? He says, Kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charaman. No, sorry. Matchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam. Kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. He says, with their mind and life centered on me, extolling me to one another, and constantly conversing about me, they find solace and rejoice. So, which means their only theme or discussion is nothing but the divine. And this we see very fully exemplified in the life of the gopis. From morning, the moment they woke up, they start churning the butter and they used to sing the glories of the Lord. Till night, they will be singing the glories of the Lord. In between, they will play with him, they will look out for him. Similarly, if you go to Varanasi, you have to go to Vrindavan, you see these things happening. क्या कहते हैं, आम तौर से बोलते हैं ना, वैसे चल रहा है. You go to various ashrams in Vrindavan as well as in Varanasi. People don't sit watching TV and doing unwanted things. Those who are sincere seekers, morning, afternoon, they will take some classes. Then some like-minded Mahatmas will come and they will take one topic and they will start discussing. Not because they want to prove something, they want to indulge in that theme of the divine. That is the goal. They will start the day by going to the Gangaji. Why? Gangaji is the divine. Get her blessings. Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, Chitte mi chizahale miyanji prane dhale jivo maro visarale bodha chiya bhuli magataya bodha cheni माझे नाचती संवाद सुखांची भोजे आता एकमेका घेपे दीजे बोधची वरी. He says, those who have become united with me, heart and soul, and become thoroughly contented, have become forgetful of birth and death in their passionate zeal for self-knowledge. Then they begin to dance in sheer ecstasy with the joy of conversation, exchanging their thoughts and experiences of self-knowledge. So their theme is like this. When we are in the ashram, every morning meditation, Roj, 4 or 5 classes every day, and when we come to our rooms, that little time, usually we will chant Bhagavatam or we'll chant whatever the text, Bhagavad Gita, and after that during lunch time or when we are doing gardening and all in the ashram, Narayan Seva time, whatever time we had, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the class, after the class, the discussion was only one. Never about what is going on, because 2 years we did not know what was the news happening in the world. No TV, no idea. Our only theme was of discussion, whatever was taught. What was my understanding? Then the other one will tell his understanding. No competition. You tell your understanding, I tell my understanding, he tells his understanding, she tells her understanding, what each one got out of whoever came together, not necessarily every day, but most of the times. We will bounce off our understanding. Other times when classes were cancelled or something, I will go literally. There were few people, students who had lived or been very close to Gurudev, and I will go and sit, and how half the night used to be over. Them telling their experiences of Gurudev. Then I had met some Mahatmas, I will tell my experiences, and oh, you never feel tired of telling each other the stories of the Mahatmas. We have experienced that. The joy, the elixir, you come in the moment when you start discussing Mahatmas and their lives and their experiences and how your experiences are somewhat like theirs. How the divine has blessed you when you look back into your life. See? जैशी जवळकेची सरोवरे उचंबळलिया कालवती परस्परे मग तरंगासी धवळारे तरंगची होती तैसी येरांची मिळणी पडत आनंद कल्लोळांची वेणी तेत बोधांची लेणी बोधेची मिरवी जैसे सूर्या ते ओवाळिले की चंद्रे चंद्रम्या क्षेम दिधले ना तरी सरिसेनी पाढे मीनले धोनी बोध तैसे प्रयाग होत सामरस्याचे वरी वोसाण तरत सात्विकांचे ते संवादच तुष्पथींचे गणेश जाहले तेव्हा तया महासुखाचे निभरे धावोनी देहाची गावा वाहरे रे मिया धाले तेणे उद्गारे लागती गाजो. He says, when two close lying lakes in spate overflow into each other, their waters mingle and their waves rise into spirals. So in the union of self-realized devotees, the ripples of their ecstatic joy gets woven into a braid and the grandeur of self-knowledge of one displays itself in harmony with the self-knowledge of the other. See, when great masters meet, I remember when first time we went to, not first time, after many years, we have been going to Sydney for a long time, but one day it was worked out that we should go and visit Swami Sridharanandji, the Ramakrishna mission head. So he had not met Anubhavananji, he has heard about him but not met him. Swamiji also has heard about it. And the first time when we went there, you should have seen, it's like two magnets, crack! And for the whole 1 hour that we were there, they did not leave each other's hand. So much love. And continuous smile on their face. No expectation, nothing. Just being in the presence of each other. Because there's nothing to gain from each other. There's nothing to give. Why? Both realize the completeness. Both realize the divine is everything. Then alone, then who desires? The one who is divorced from the divine, he wants something. He wants realization. He wants to become perfect. He wants to be in samadhi. See? As long as you want, to that extent you are far away from what you are seeking. Want is good initially to come out of the gravity of the world that is pulling you towards it. But once you have come out of it, drop the want. Just be. Just be. There's nothing to achieve, nothing to lose, nothing to gain. As Swamiji says, nothing to do and nowhere to go. Because divine is complete. If we say there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, does water have anything to do? Does water have anywhere to go? It is complete in itself, isn't it? Does space have anything to do? Nothing. It is just being as it is. Can space go anywhere? It cannot go anywhere because wherever it goes, there it is. Such is a Mahatma who has come to realize that the Lord is pervading even that space. Space itself is the manifestation of that Paramatma. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Then what can be done? Nothing. Just remain in the bliss. So he says, as if the sun should wave a light before another sun, or the moon should embrace another moon, or two streams of equal flow should mingle with one another. So when such blessed souls come together, they form a confluence of sacred streams of divine life, throwing up on its surface pure sentiments, sattvic bhavas. You go, I don't know, have you been to Rudraprayag? You came. You remember the Mandakini and the Alaknanda, when we went down the steps, the two rivers coming and merging? One is green color water, one is white color water, and the view is so spectacular that the two rivers are meeting and there is one line. This river is surrendering into the other, and the other one is surrendering into this one. It's the yin and yang. So here we are not talking about from absolute point, here we are talking from devotee's point. When two like-minded people come from a particular profession, they talk about their profession. Accountants come, they talk about accountancy. Two mothers come, they talk about their children competing. Similarly, when two devotees come, they only talk about the Lord. They only talk about the experience of the Lord. They only talk about the glory of the Lord. And such people, when they come together, then a beautiful atmosphere of blessedness starts emanating everywhere, wherever such people are together. See? Why do we feel when we go to Alandi? Why do we feel that peace? Yes, Jnaneshwar Maharaj is there in his Samadhi, but so many Mahatmas whom you don't even know, everyone is looking like a commoner there, isn't it? But so many devotees with a single pointed devotion to that Mahatma, to the Bhagavad Gita, to the Jnaneshwari. Singing, sitting there, singing there. Some of them are doing japa, some of them are doing sadhana, dhyan. They find one tree there, or one cave there, or one rock there, and they are sitting there and reading their pothi or sitting in meditation. While reading the pothi, some of them go into meditation. Have you seen? Have you been to Alandi? Ayyo.
That's it, really.
That
It's very near to us. And we are
You
not
must
even-
go. Next time you go to Bombay, you must go to Alandi. Now you are studying Jnaneshwari.
Yes.
Go to Alandi and have the darshan. You have been? You have been? Before you all, he has been.
He's the one who
He's been everywhere. Shegaon, Alandi, all the way, Narsovawadi, everywhere he has been. Dehu, Gondavle, Sajjangad, everything he has seen. Because if I go on a trip, I have to go and visit Mahatmas or their Samadhis. Without that, trip is not complete. Yatra is not complete. See? So, what is that you feel in the divine atmosphere? All the congregation of such Mahatmas who are thinking of the divine alone. When you go to Tiruvannamalai, 30 kilometers away from Tiruvannamalai, you feel you have entered into a sacred space. What is that feeling? So many Mahatmas doing meditation there. When you go into Himalayas, the moment you cross Rishikesh, enter Rishikesh, you know you are in a blessed area. If you are intuitive enough. What makes you feel that way? Because that is the tapobhumi of all the Mahatmas. See? When you go to certain, you must have gone to many temples. Some temples you do want to run out of them straight away. Some temples, the moment you step in, you feel very auspicious. Temple is not auspicious because of the construction. Temple is auspicious because of the puja that is being done. If the pujari is sattvic, if the pujari is doing everything with devotion, then those vibrations will spread everywhere. But if that pujari is unrighteous, eating meat, drinking, having a very licentious life, and yet nobody knows and he is doing the puja, you will feel zero out there. You want to get away. कुछ नहीं है, मजा नहीं है इधर. वही statue है. Statue is of the Lord, but there is no life in it. The life gets invoked by the devotion of the pujari. And that can happen in your house also. When your gods are in front of you, are you doing it mechanically or are you doing it out of intense devotion to the Lord? And that becomes your altar. See? And that becomes your altar. So the thought being presented is that all such great souls, when they come together, when they come just like, that is why confluence is given such a great importance. Confluence means where merging happens. So, wherever there is merging, there is a Kumbh Mela. So, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, the Prayag, where we went, he has been there. Have you been? Prayag? ये सब कुछ कर चुका है. You go to Rudraprayag, Mandakini and Alagnanda, merging. See? Wherever the rivers confluence, that becomes a place of worship. And that's where the Mahatmas come together. Where have you seen 70 million people coming in 1 year, 1 month? Prayagraj 74, that was official. We think it is more than 100 million people in 1 month. Here also in Ujjain now, Kumbh Mela is going on. There they are expecting at least 40-50 million people over 1 month. Continuing. Then the devotees become, as it were, presiding deities on the highway in the form of a dialogue. Overflowing with the supreme bliss, they forget their body consciousness and proclaim loudly their rapturous joy at having attained union with me. This was the state of Ananda Mahima. This was the state of Akhandananda Maharaj. This was the state of Mirabai. This was the state of Kabir Das. Oh, you can name hundreds of Mahatmas like this. Gondavle Maharaj, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Papa Ramdas. You read The Quest of God? नहीं पढ़ी, मैंने भेजी थी ना तुम्हें. पढ़ो एक बार. तुमको भी भेजी थी नहीं? भेजी थी. पढ़ी नहीं.
Like started.
It's 1 night, 2 hours read, that's it will finish. But it will change your life. It will give you a different vision of the whole thing, of your own life, where we are falling short. What is to be aspired in life? like Papa Ramdas did. See? पय गुरु शिष्यांची या एकांती जे अक्षरा एकाची वदंती ते मेघाची या परी त्रिजगती गर्जती सैंघ जैसी कमळ कळिका जालेपणे हृदयींची या मकरंदाते राखो नेणे दे राया रंका पारणे आमोदांचे तैसेची माते विश्वी कथिते नीतोषे कथू विसरत मग तया विसरा माझी विरत आंगे जीवे ऐसे प्रेमाचे नि बहुवसपणे नाही राती दिवो जाणणे केले माझे सुख अव्यंगवाणे आपण पेयाजिही तेषा सतत जिही. He says that they declare in the whole world in a sonorous voice like that of clouds the secret and mystic mantra which the masters disclose in solitude to his disciple, just as when a lotus blossoms it is unable to contain its sweet smell within itself and wafts it equally to prince and pauper, so these devotees while singing my glory become so absorbed in the soul's joy that they become oblivious to everything and thereby lose their body consciousness. Utterly obvious of the times flow by day and night, in this overflowing love for God, they remain settled in the enjoyment of their blissful union with me. So in yoga, we bring about body disidentification through control of senses and mind. In devotion, merely intensely with faith, thinking about the divine glory with that vision that is given, that the Lord, the divine is, and his manifestation is this universe. In that thought, he becomes so intoxicated that he forgets himself as the body, because the thought that I am the body is in the mind only, isn't it? But where is that mind now? Thinking of the God who is everything. So your mind is expanding and expanding and expanding to include, it's trying to understand what God could be. But mind can never understand infinity, because infinity is not a concept. Eternity is not a concept. Divinity is not a concept. All pervasiveness is not a concept. Truth is not a concept. Absolute is not a concept. Reality is not a concept. I, the self, is not a concept. It is a reality. It is. Whether you think or you don't think, concepts are in the intellect. You are is not a concept. God is not a concept. Not God as you know it, huh? God as he is. Otherwise you'll say, oh yeah, anything that has name and form is a concept. But God as it is, the infinite, unifying power, which is manifesting as this whole creation and yet is beyond the creation, is not a concept. And that God is not other than you. And you are not a concept. See? And it is only through the mind we are trying to search for ourselves, isn't it? And mind can only work on the conceptual basis. Intellect can only work through conceptual basis. So it makes the self also into a concept, and it wants to work it out. It cannot work out. And therefore it is told, think of the Lord in his glory. And in this way, such people who contemplate on the divine in this manner, who contemplate on the Ishvara in this manner, they are unable to think of anything else but remember His glory and sing His glory, and in that process they lose, क्या वो हिंदी में बोलते हैं, सब भान भूल जाते हैं. They forget everything. They forget time, they forget this, where they are, what time it is, whether they are alive or they are dead, whether they are wearing clothes or not wearing clothes, whether they are decent or indecent, whether they are in public or in private, they are in front of children or in front of adults, they are behaving like mad people or intelligent. It does not bother them. Why? Because they have got something more sweeter, more sweet than anyone can ever experience. And it is not that they are deciding that they have to do this. It is spontaneous. And the example given here was, when a bud becomes a flower, flower doesn't decide to give fragrance. It gives fragrance. It is its nature. And that fragrance spreads everywhere. And when the fragrance spreads, what happens? Bees come to get the nectar from the flower, isn't it? Similarly, such a devotee, when he gets intoxicated in the divine, he starts wafting a divine fragrance everywhere. And people come from far and wide to take the nectar from that such a Mahatma. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudacche Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.